Hello horror hounds, welcome to Blood on the Tracks, our little mini series of train themed horror movies. We're pulling into the next stop, which is 2004's The Three Faces of Terror, otherwise known as I Tre Volti del Terrore, an Italian anthology horror movie produced, written, directed by Sergio Stivoletti, who directed a film called The Wax Mask that I reviewed a little while ago for our Waxwork horror movie themed season. It's fair to say that I like The Wax Mask a lot better than The Three Faces of Terror. But to provide a little context as to why I'm going to be talking favourably about this movie, when objectively I should be criticising it a hell of a lot. People who watch regularly will know that the previous video to this was a movie called Train, which I fucking loathed. It had a decent sized budget, it had talent behind the camera, it had talent in front of the camera, it looked perfectly fine, and it was completely and utterly devoid of a soul and artistic merit. I hated it. So whilst this film has its flaws, and it does have its flaws, I'm going to look much more favourably on a film whose shortcomings are apparent through budgetary concerns, but despite that, there's still an energy, there's still a willingness to entertain, and there's still a striving to achieve something that's present in this film that was just not present in the disgustingly bland, cookie cutter, hostile wannabe film that we saw previously. The setup for the anthology, the wraparound segment, if you will, involves two men and a woman sitting in a train carriage. They are joined by a third man, an older man, who is a hypnotist, and he has a strange globe-like device that they're interested in. And each of the passengers passes it around, and the device hypnotizes them and gives them visions. This is a movie that is self-consciously in love with where this movie comes from. For all the right reasons, I think. There are fun homages all the way through. The setup is essentially Amicus Films' Dr. Terror's House of Horror. The hypnotist character is called Professor Peter Price, clearly an allusion to Peter Cushing, who's Dr. Terror in that Amicus film, and the lovely Vincent Price. The original title, the Italian title, Il Tre Volti del Terrore, The Three Faces of Terror, is a clear allusion to Mario Bava's Il Tre Volti della Paura. Sorry for the pronunciation, any Italian viewers. The Three Faces of Fear that we know as Black Sabbath. There are a couple of cute cameos in this for those either in the know, not me, or who read up about it afterwards, me. Claudio Simonetti has a little part in this, composer and keyboardist for Goblin. If you love your Italian horror movies, then you don't need me to tell you why Goblin are important. Another cameo is Lamberto Bava playing himself, not only the son of the great Mario Bava, but director of Demons and Demons 2. That gives you a little flavour, I think, of where this movie's coming from and the intentions behind making it. The real secret weapon of this film is John Philip Law, the actor who plays, well, not just plays Professor Price, but plays a character in each of the short anthology stories as well. John Philip Law was Sinbad in the Golden Voyage of Sinbad. He was in Barbarella, Pygart, I think, in Barbarella, for Mystery Science Theater 3000 fans, he was the villain Calgan in the glorious Space Mutiny, and he was also Diabolic in the film Diabolic, as it's called in the US, and Danger Diabolic, as we know it over here. A film that also got the Mystery Science Theater 3000 treatment, but in its own right has since been reappraised, directed by this name again, the great Mario Bava. It's either a sign of how brilliant he is or how dumb I am, or a little bit of both, that it wasn't until I was reading up about it that I realised he was all for characters. I'm slow on the uptake anyway, generally as a rule, but he was clearly having a blast, and the greatest compliment I guess you can pay to an actor. I didn't realise he had 4 roles in this movie. So I'll give you the broad strokes of each segment. First one's called The Moon Ring, or The Ring of the Moon. There are various different translations of the Italian titles. This one involves a couple of people who are who are hired to raid, I think it's an Etruscan tomb, and take the treasures out and sell them to their fence. But one of the guys steals a ring off the corpse and puts it on. And the ring comes with a curse, and this is a werewolf segment. The middle segment is with the female passenger. It's either called A Perfect Face or Dr. Lifting is the other translation I've seen of it. I wouldn't say yes, it's sort of a cautionary tale. It's got a plastic surgery theme to it. This is the one with Lamberto Bava in it as himself. It follows an actress who's on the set of Demons 7, no less, and she takes her friend to visit a plastic surgeon. It's her friend that wants the work done, and her friend has a strange request. We'll just leave it at that. That segment is very reminiscent of the Freddy's Nightmares TV series. All of the segments have a sort of 90s Freddy's Nightmares, Tales from the Dark Side type vibe. Maybe intentionally, but more I suspect to do with a very, very small budget, so that a film made in 2004 aesthetically, unfortunately, looks like a film made 10, 15 years previous to that. The final segment is called The Lake Keeper or Guardian of the Lake. 3 friends decide to go camping by a lakeside, and there's a lake monster in there, essentially. The reason I'm looking maybe more favourably on this film than I should, objectively, is because of the ambition behind it. One of the things that hampers it, unfortunately, is that the ambition, the will, far outstrips the budget. And with the best will in the world, the cracks start to show. It highlights shortcomings in the writing. Anthology movies should zip along. I mean, each segment, depending on how many segments you've got, is going to be maybe about 20 minutes long. I mean, just get in, get out, tell the story. It's quite telling in these segments that sort of an awful lot of nothing happens until you get to the point of why the segment's in there, which is generally around some sort of set piece with practical effects. And very clearly, they've saved as much of the money as they can for the practical effects, which I absolutely applaud and laud them for. Sergio Stivoletti himself came from an effects background. He did effects for Bava, for Argento. I mean, many men. Look up his CV, it's so impressive. And then moved into directing with The Wax Mask. Stivoletti knows practical effects, and he knows how to shoot them, and he knows how to give them prominence. I think there was more money in The Wax Mask. You can see a love for practical effects in The Wax Mask as well, but you can also see a much more polished movie. It's shot on digital video as well, which I'm sure was a budgetary decision made. Unfortunately, it ages the thing dreadfully. The way it looks, that's what I meant earlier when I said aesthetically, it looked like some of these anthology TV shows from the 90s. Of course, if you're able to afford film stock and if you're able to light it in the way Mario Bava would light it, then scenes of people talking and not much necessarily happening can be given a depth and a luxuriousness and a mise en scène that you just can't get shooting fast and shooting with a small budget. What I will say though, of great interest, is each story in the segment just ends. I found it bizarre at first, and then the middle story really doesn't focus on the female passenger that's having the hypnosis done to her. She's in the story, but it focuses on her friend, and I began to get really infuriated by that. And then that story just ends, and I found myself sort of negotiating with the story, going, "All right, this is a really weird storytelling choice." But I guess it does more accurately reflect a dream state, with transient identities and dreams come to an end rather than a narrative conclusion. However, the final bit of the wraparound, the final train carriage segment, does something that I've never seen before in an anthology movie. The revelation of what's going on, and why have you shown us these things, and why have I got no memory of them? By the way, if you've seen any anime, you already know the answer. But the construction of the narrative is that when the hypnotist Professor Price reveals what's going on, he does it by revealing the end of all of their stories in quick succession. So there's a sting, an extra sting on the end of all of their stories. To a nerd like me, to a horror film nerd like me, that's a point of interest right there. I've never seen an anthology movie where all of the stories just stop, and then at the end we get in quick succession the end of all of the stories. It leads in to a super bonkers, crazy bonkers ending. If I tell you that the film starts, uh, the opening credits are a kid making a crayon drawing of a train going through the countryside, and then we close in on the picture of the train, and then we're in the carriage, and the film starts. After the revelation that let's cut the crap. They're all dead. Okay, we know they're all dead. It's revealed to them that they've all died, and they're trapped on this train. Uh, they go to the front of the train, and you'd forgotten the kid by now, and then it pulls out, and the train is sort of surrounded by swirling light, and it pulls out further and further, and they're trapped inside a marble. We saw the kids colouring pencils and marbles and stuff like that. They're trapped inside a marble on the desk of the kid who's drawing the picture. And then it pulls out further, and the kid is in space, and he's orbiting the Earth like the Star Child at the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey. And then he shuffles some of his pictures, and he's got another picture of a black car driving through the countryside. And then we zoom in on that picture, and then the end credits happen. And halfway through the end credits, genius, we're inside a car, and it's raining, and they pull over to pick up a hitchhiker, and there are two men and a woman in the car, and the hitchhiker that gets in is Professor Price, and it's going to start all over again in the either this kid's god or in the imagination of this weird, bizarre, doodling star child, and their purgatory, their hell is to be trapped inside his marbles. So, whilst I can't pretend that this is going to be the greatest film you'll ever see in your entire life, I will say it's for real completists only. It's for people that sort of want to try and fit in as many of the jigsaw pieces as possible.